So, in order for us to understand what's going on with those that are going up to the Har and why they're doing what they're doing, are they stam crazy? Do they just want to have an Issa Eres every day? They want to have an Issa Karis? Is it something they wake up in the morning and say, yeah, I'm going to eat a piece of Chazir treif? Like, what's going on? Rational people, tell me the Chachamim, why are they doing what they're doing? Is there a case for it? Can we know where we know? Can we know where the Beis HaMikdash stood on Har Bayis? Is it relevant to us? Can we build Beis HaMikdash? Can we bring Karbanis? All these things that we all wish for. We all daven every day. We say, Ani Mam ve'emunah shalima b'viyas HaMashiach v'afal b'shiyas mameim kol zeh chakale b'chol yom she'ova. It's something that we all truly, truly want. So, is there something practical for us to do? Is it just something we just sit and we daven and we hope for the Geula? Let's try to go through the sugya bit by bit and see what we can come out with. So we'll start with something that everybody is familiar with. I realize now that there's a lot of Satmars here, so hopefully I don't get stoned. But we could all understand that for the majority of Frumi Yidden, this is the ultimate, the Kaisel HaMaravi. People feel a very special connection to it when they come. I know when I was a Bachar and I came to Eretz Yisrael for the first time, came to learn in Mir Yeshiva, my father told me, as soon as you land, first thing you do, remember Hashem's house is waiting. Make sure you go to the Kaisel. So I remember it was like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, get all my suitcases into my dira in Chai Adam Street. Till I get there, I run to Zichar Moshe, grab Mincha, and now I'm trying to figure out, which dira I'm staying by and what's going on, where I'm going to go. I have no clue where I'm going. All I know is I have one goal. Before I go to sleep, I have to go to the Kaisel. So I run to the Kaisel, I get there, and I'm like going down the steps, and I'm feeling this hargosha, like, wow, I've made it. But Taka, have I made it? Is this really that it's all meant to be? Is this what we want? Is this something, like, what's special about this little section of the wall? When we look at this picture over here from the overhead, you can see that's just a small, tiny section of the whole Har Bayis. Just a small little thing. Just this little area here. What makes this area any more special than this area? Or this area, east, north, any other part of the Western Wall? Is there something special to that? Or is the reason why we're standing at the Kaisel HaMaravi, those that are unable to do so, because there's a yearning for something deeper? So let's take a look. When we're talking about the Makom HaMikdash, we're talking about one spot in the entire world that is known as the Lev Shel HaOlam. It's the heart of the world. This specific spot, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, the first thing he created, says the Gemara Masechet Smachos, Mimenu hushtat ha'olam. From there, the world was created. V'lakach nikras even shesiya shemimenu hischil HaKadosh Baruch Hu levrayos olamai. The first thing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created was the Even HaShesiya. And from there, everything else was growing. The whole beautiful universe that we live in, that we're a part of today, is all part of, that all started from that first thing, that first Nakuda. And that first Nakuda, as we know from the Sefer Kedoshim, the first thing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu creates, that has the most intense power. And if we think that that's it, but we see that no, because Rambam writes in Hilchos Beis HaBechir, when he's talking about the Makam HaMizbeach, where we can build the Mizbeach, where we must build the Mizbeach, he writes, Miseris biyad kol. It's a Miseris in the hands of everybody. Shehamakim shebana by David Shlomo HaMizbeach begayin Ravno, the place that Shlomo HaMelech built the Beis HaMikdash, hu hamakim shebana by Avram HaMizbeach v'akad la v'Yitzchak. This is the same exact place. There was a Messiah that this place that David HaMelech bought from the Garin Ravno, when he saw the Malach that had the Charbe Shalufa Biyadeh over Yerushalayim during the Magefa, and he brought a carbon there. This spot was also the very same spot where Akedah Yitzchak took place. We know Avram Avinu is coming from Hebron with his son Yishmael and his son Yitzchak and Eliezer, and Vayaras HaMakom Yerachik. They see the place from afar, and clearly only Yitzchak Avinu saw it. So Avram Avinu says to Yishmael, Shavu lechem poyim hachamor v'ani v'anar ne'lecha ad koven v'nishtachaveh v'neshuva lechem. That place, this is the same Har Moriah. Noach, when he comes out of the Teva, he lands on Har Ararat, which, according to most people, is in northern Turkey. He doesn't build a Mizbeach there. He doesn't decide to say thank you to HaKadosh Baruch Hu there. Rather, he travels all the way to Yerushalayim, a distance of a few hundred miles, Dafka to this very mountain, Har Moriah, and there on the Mizbeach that Adam Rishon, as we're going to see, built, that's where he brings his carbon. Why? There's something that everybody knew at that time, that there's a special connection to this very first place, this Even Shesiya. V'hu ha-mizbeach she'ikr olav kain v'hevel. Kain and Hevel, we all know. Okay, it's the same. It's next to it. And originally, it's machlokes again. If the mizbeach that Avram Avinu and Noach and we'll see Adam Rishon and Kain Hevel was actually on the Mishasiyah, or is it our Makom mizbeach? I'm not going to get too deep into that machlokes right now. But it's the same mountain. It's a mountain. At the top of the mountain, as we know from the Gemaras, is the location of the Evan Shasiyah. So this is also the place where Cain and Hevel, the first two people to have a real debate about what's the Iker form of Avodas Hashem. Is it from behemoths or is it from plants? What's the right way to go? And they have this whole machlekes, and we know where it leads to. But ultimately, where were those karbonos brought? Says Rambam, at this very spot. Uboy hikriv Adam Rishon carbon kishanivro umisham nivro. This is the same place where Adam Rishon, after he was created, where was he created from? From this spot, the the first thing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created in this universe, which then expanded out to the beautiful world that we have today, and everything in, all the planets and all the universes and galaxies, all starts from this Evan Shasiyah. The first man, Adam Rishon, is created from there as well. Amru Chachamim, Chazal teach us, Adam mimokum kaparosei nivro. So there's this special connection of kapara, of tefillah, of hisrakshus, by this very spot. And we know the Beis Hamikdash that was built there, it was the center of everything, the center of the whole world. It was the Makom of the Shechina, as it says, Vayeve'ini v'libi sham kol hayamim. It was the place where karbonis were brought as the Pesukim tell us. Don't bring a carbon any place that you want. Only at the Makom HaShabacha Hashem, that's where you bring your karbonis. This is the place for Aliyah L'Regel. It was the place for Hisrakshus. Every time Am Yisrael fell and they needed to be mischazik, where did they go? They all came to the Beis Hamikdash and they were mischazik themselves back into Avodas Hashem. It was a place of Ishtachavoya, which is one of the most important forms of Avodas Hashem, as the Medrash tells us that Hakol b'schus Ishtachavoya, just as Avram Avinu didn't leave Har Moriah without doing Ishtachavoya, so too the Beis Hamikdash will be rebuilt only b'schus Ishtachavoya. Everything comes with that. So it's an intense form of Avodas Hashem that can be done. We know a person's not allowed to do Ishtachavoya on an Evan Maskis, but where can one do it? Straight on the floor without any heker, dafka, by the Beis Hamikdash. So, but there is one additional part of the Beis Hamikdash and Har Bayis that is crucial beyond all, and that is tefillah. We know Yaakov Avinu, when he's running away from Esau, so he runs to Charan. He gets just about the Charan, and he realizes, Ohavei, I forgot to daven at the place where my Aviseinu davened. So what does he do? He travels all the way back, and he gets to Beisel. And there he has kvitzas haderech, and he ends up on Har Moriah, and he goes to sleep, and he has this dream, the dream of the ladder. The malachim are going up the ladder and down the ladder, and he wakes up, and he says something very strange. Vayikatz Yaakov mishanosa vayomer, achein yesh Hashem b'makom hazeh v'onechi lo yadati. Is it possible that Hashem is at this place and I didn't realize? Vayira vayimar manoira hamakom hazeh. How awesome is this place? Ein zakim beis elikim is ashar hashamayim. This is the house of Hashem and the gateway to the Shamayim. So, hayitachin that Yaakov Avinu didn't realize where he was? You don't think that every year on the anniversary of the Akedah there was a big Suda and there's a big matzah, a big maimer between the house of Avram Avinu? This is the most crucial thing that ever happened to Am Yisrael, that thing that we invoke on Rosh Hashanah. Yaakov Avinu knew what Har Moriah was. And just as the Medrash tells us that when Yitzchak and Rivka didn't have any children, where did they go daven? They went up to Har Moriah, and that's where they're answered. That's when they had Yaakov and Esau. Yaakov knew very well what Har Moriah was. But he didn't realize its full potential, its full power, until he himself experienced it. And when he realized something deeper, that when he davened at this spot, he realized that this, right over here, is the connection place between this world and the Shamayim. Yes, every person knows that we can daven anywhere we are, right? We're sitting here in Borough Park. Of course we daven, right? We put our koiches into our tefillas, we daven with the minyan, we do everything. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol niheh b'dvarei. But davening, where does all our tefillas go? As we'll see shortly, we always channel our tefillas towards the Makom HaMikdash. When Yaakov Avinu was davening, when he woke up from his dream and he realized this itself, this is the connecting point. This is the Mokum, as the Pasuk tells us. It's never called Yerushalayim. It's called HaMokum, Ba'Mokum, right? This place that connects between this world and the Shamayim is right over here. And therefore, the Ibn Ezra tells us, Kim Beis Elikim, Sheyispal Odamoy B'Shas Tzarkoi, V'stishmat Tfilosoi Ki Hamakom Nivchar. The place is chosen. And we have the famous Pirkei Rebbe Lezer, for those who are Bakant in Yeshiva Boys Choir, everybody for sure recognizes these words. Hishkim Yaakov M'Pach Godol, V'Omer Beis Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu B'Makom Hazeh. Shenemar vayiro vayimar maniro hamakom hazeh. Mikana talomed shekol hamispalel b'makom hazeh b'Yerushalayim ki ilu hispalel lifnei kisei hakavod. That dafka at this place is where one is davening in front of the kisei hakavod. Sheshara shamayim shamhu upesach pasuach l'shmaya tefillah shenemar v'zeh shara shamayim. So what we're seeing from here is that when Yaakov Avinu woke up and he realized the immense power of the place, he was calling out and marking it that this is in fact the makom, the ultimate connecting place between this world and Shamayim, and the Kisei HaKavod. And so we see that when Shlomo Melech builds the Beis HaMikdash at this time, he says a very intense tefillah. And what does he channel? What is this one bakasha to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? That the Beis HaMikdash should be a place of tefillah, and that any tefillah that's answered, that is davened here, should be answered, and should be guaranteed to be answered. As it says, "Vayam Shlomo lefnei mizbach Hashem neged kol kahal Yisrael vayifrois kapov hashamayim vayomer liyos einecha psuchos al habayis hazeh laila vayoim el hamokim asher amarta yiyah shemisham l'shmoya al hatfilah asher yispalu avdecha al hamokim hazeh v'shamata al tchinas avdecha v'amcha Yisrael asher yispalu al hamokim hazeh v'ato tishma al makom shivtecha al hashamayim v'shamat v'salachto Rav kiyeh ba'aretz, dever kiyeh, shidofon yerokoin arbe chasil kiyeh, kiyotzer loy oyevoy be'eretz she'arav, kol nega kol macha, kol tefila, kol tchina, asher tiyeh l'chol ha'odom, l'chol amcha Yisrael, asher yedu an ish nega levovoy, uparas kapov v'labayis hazeh, v'ato tishma hashamayim m'choin shivtecha, v'salachto v'alsisa, l'man yedu'un, kol amei ha'aretz, Hashem hecha, that everybody should know, liyiro isach, ke'amcha Yisrael, v'ladas, ki shimcha nikra al habayis hazeh, asher bonisi, and what does Hashem answer him? Vayomer Hashem Elov, Shomati el tfilosecha, ve'el tchinosecha, asher eschananti lefonai, hikdashti es habayis hazeh, asher bonisa, l'shum shemisham ad ha'olam, v'haya ve'eni v'libi sham kol hayam. From this point forward, Chazal teach us that there's no longer allowed to bring a bama anywhere else in Eretz Yisrael. You're no longer able to channel, as the Mishnah tells us, Eretz Yisrael is mukdash mikol ha'arotzos. Eretz Yisrael technically can be anywhere within Eretz Yisrael. You could have that makom. You could have that connection between this world and the Shamayim. But once the Beis HaMikdash was designated in Yerushalayim, no more. From that point forward, even though prior, when Am Yisrael first enters into Eretz Yisrael, the Mikdash is in Shiloh, it's in Noiv, it's in Givon, it travels around. But once it was set up in Yerushalayim, at that point, it can never move from this spot. And Hashem guarantees that his eyes and his heart is there for all time. And therefore, the Mishnah in Masechtas Smachos tells us, the Gemara in Masechtas Smachos tells us, Shemitchilu leibana shleima habayis elo al tnai. How do we know that the tzibur is guaranteed that tefillas are answered? That for anybody in your nation Yisrael, how do we know that even a goy who comes to this spot and davens to Hashem that his tefillas are answered? How do I know a person looks like, fine, I can daven a tefillah, a very important tefillah. I have a family member who's sick or something. There's something that's very important. I have to daven. So I go to Har Bayis. I go to the Beis HaMikdash to daven. But what happens if I just want a new car? It's not the most important thing. Obviously, we're talking about someone who it isn't. Maybe some people it is. But let's say I want a new phone, or I want groceries. Do I still go there? Says the Gemara, kol tefillah, kol tchina. Anything a person wants, any bakasha a person has, anything that he needs, we all know that Hashem is the Makar HaBracha. Where do we daven for? Over here at this spot. And we all know that personally when we daven, we, as we mentioned, force our tefillahs towards the Beis HaMikdash. As it says, someone who's standing in Chutz La'aretz, Yechaven eslibe keneged Eretz Yisrael, shenemer v'espalu lecha derech Eretzim. Hayomed be'Eretz Yisrael, Yechaven eslibe keneged Yerushalayim, shenemer v'espalu Hashem derech ha'ir asher bacharta. Right. So if you're in Tzfas or Meron, you don't face towards Mizrach, you face south towards Yerushalayim. But Hayomed be'Yerushalayim, Yichaven es liboy kenega beis hamikdash. Shemer v'yispal al bayis hazeh. So you can all go home and have a good trivia question for your kids on the Shabbos Seudah. You can ask them, which city in the world is the only city that every shul faces a different direction? And it's true. You could stand on Har Zeisim and you're facing west. You stand in the Old City facing east. Standing in Har Tzofim, you're facing south. Every shul faces a different direction. But more so, someone is standing on Har Bayis in the Beis Hamikdash. Yichaven es liboy keneged beis kodshei kodashim, the place of the Eben Shesiyah. Shenemar v'ispalu al hamokom hazeh. This is the Gemara in Brachos. Even when the Beis Hamikdash is destroyed, the Kedusha still stays, as Rambam writes, Afal pi she'hamikdash hayom charav b'avoyin, Yiseinu chayev odom b'moiroi k'moi she'ayinoeg boi b'binyanoi. Lo yikones al l'makom shemutar likones l'sham, v'lo yeshed ba'azara, v'lo yaka roishe k'neged sha'ar mizrach shenemer, es shabsoisei tishmoiru u'mikdash yitiro, mashmir Shabbos la'olam, af moiru mikdash la'olam, she'afal pi she'charev v'kdushosei oimid. Still has the Kedusha, even though we know that Ravid disagrees, but the vast majority of Paiskim, including Mogen Avram and Mishnah Berurah Paskin like Rambam, we're not going to get into that machlekes now. Rambam continues, V'lomani omer b'mikdash v'Yerushalayim kedusha rishona kitcha la'asad lavoi, lefi shekedushas hamikdash v'Yerushalayim mepnei hashchina, v'hashchina eina batla, v'areu omer v'ashimoises mikdashechem, v'omer chachamim afal pi sheshomim b'kedushasan him omer. They're still standing. The kedusha is still there. And the Medrash tells us, Omar Rabbi Eliezer, Ben shechar beis hamikdash uben shaloi charav, in hashchina zazim mitoichoi, shenemar Hashem behecha kodshoi, afal pi shebeshamayim kisoi, shchinose bebeis hamikdash, shenemar v'ya'ini v'libi sham kol hayamim, v'cheinu omer v'ya'aneni mihar kodshoi selo, afal pi shu har, b'kdushosei hu oimid. Amar Rabbi Elazar, Rei maksiv, ki ata tetzim mikreo v'shachanta basada, v'shachanti ksiv, she'afal pi shechorav, shchinasi oimedes sham. Amar Rabbi Yachon, this is my favorite medrash, and people conveniently leave out three very important words. Lo olam in hashchina zaza mikoisam maravi shel beis hamikdash, referring to the wall of the Azar, not the outer wall of the Rhodian expansion of Har Bayis. Shenemer, hine zeh oimed acher kreslein. No, that would actually make sense. Where was the Shechina in the Beis Hamikdash? By the Even Shesiyah, the Kodesh HaKadoshim. What's the closest wall to that? The Kesel HaMaravi of the Azara. Okay, so now that we've seen all this, and we can appreciate and understand that the Makom Mikdash is not only the chosen place for Avodas Hashem in the highest degree, it's the place that there was a connection since Brias Ha'olam. It's the place where Adam Rishon, Kain, Hevel, Noach, Avram Avinu, Yitzchak Avinu, Yaakov Avinu, and then David HaMelech, Shlomo HaMelech, all the way through Bayis Rishon and Bayis Sheni. And even after the Chorban, it still has its Kedusha, and still has the immense power that we can tap into. But we still have a question. Are you allowed to go? If it has such Kedusha, what are we talking about? Are we allowed to just stop, walk in? So let's take a look. When Am Yisrael was in the Midbar, they camped in a tzura, something similar to this. Right? You had the Machane the Golem, outside camp, inside the Leviim, and then in the middle was the Mishkan. As Rashi tells us, the early Gemara, both in Psachim and in Zvachim, that there were three Machanes. You had Machane Yisrael, Machane Leviah, and Machane Shechina. Says the pasuk in Parshas Nasai. Tzavis b'nei Yisrael, v'yishalachu min ha'machane kol tzarua, v'chol zav, v'chol tamil l'nofesh. Three types of tumah. We have a tzarua, someone who gets teras. He says lashon hara. He gets a nega on his basar. He goes to the kohen. The kohen looks at it and says, "Sorry, you're tameh." He has to go out of the machane and stay there for 7 days until he can become tahor. Most famously, we know of Miriam Hanaviyah, who had that, and in her great schos, Am Yisrael didn't travel when she was, for 7 days, right? She stayed outside for 7 days, outside all three machanes, outside that Nanei covered, and in her great schos, Am Yisrael didn't travel while she was outside, because otherwise she would have to travel with the Am and not be protected by that Nanei covered. We have a Zov, which is someone who has Tumah Sheyotzim in her guf, and we have a Tamei Meis, someone who comes in contact with a dead body. Most of us, we assume today that everybody is the Tumas Meis, especially since those of us who are born, even Kohanim, are born in hospitals, and they're becheskas that there are Tamei Meis there. Says Rashi on that pasuk, don't think that all three tumas have to go out of all three machanes. Rather, hatzarua nishtal chutz l'kulam. Takat, a mitzvah has to go out of all three. Hazav muter b'machane Yisrael, u'mishalach min hashtayim. A zav is not allowed in machane Levia or Shechina, but is allowed in machane Yisrael. V'tamei lanofesh muter af b'shel Levia, v'ein mishalech el mishal Shechina. A tamei meis is muter in machane Yisrael and machane Levia, but not in machane Shechina. This is a really Gemara in Pesachim Daf Pei Zayin. So back to our map. The gray machane Yisrael, also for Mitzayra. The yellow machane Levia is also for a zav, and the orange, the place of the Mishkan itself, is also for a tamei meis. Clear? Very clear. Says the Gemara in Zvachim, Daf Kuf Tez Zayin Amud Beis. Keshem shemachane b'midbar, kach machane b'Yerushalayim. Mi'Yerushalayim lahar habayis, machane Yisrael. So all around the city of Yerushalayim today, that has the gather of machane Yisrael. Mehar habayis l'shar Nikanor. We take all of Har habayis up to the entrance of the Azara. That is machane Levia. Mikan ve'elech, from the entrance of the Azara, from Shar Nikanor to the back of the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Shar Nikanor. Thank you. I'll remember that now. Shar Nikanor, from the back of till the back of the Kodesh HaKadoshim. That is the location of machane Shechina. And we also know this from the Mishnah. The Mishnah tells us in Kalim, Asar Kedoshis, we mentioned it before, the 10 levels of Kedusha. Eretz Yisrael is Mukdash Mikol HaRotzos. Then you have Batei Arei Chayma that are Mukdash from Eretz Yisrael. You have Yerushalayim that is Mukdash from that you can have Kachei Kalim and Ma'aser Sheni there. And then it says Har habayis is Mukdash at the Mashalach and Zav is Nidas V'Yelad from there. And then you get into the Chel where it says that's where tamei meis is not allowed in, and that's Midrabanan. We'll get into that in a little bit. So, if we want to now that we know that there are three machanes, and we know very clearly what type of tumas are not allowed into those machanes, in order for us to be able to place the Beis HaMikdash onto Har habayis, we need to have a clear Messiah where the Beis HaMikdash once stood, because Har habayis is much larger than the 500 amas that we have from the Mishnah. Now, if we can have a starting place on anywhere on Har habayis that we know definitively the Beis HaMikdash stood in that place, we will be able to then lay out the Beis HaMikdash based on the amas brought in Mishnayos Midas, and we can see if we can even have a makom to start talking about where one might enter. So I'm going to now go through a series of Mekayros, which are found in a sefer called HaMeseres Al Mokum HaMikdash, which traces the very one of the oldest Meseres that we have since Churban Vayisheni till today, without any break, that Am Yisrael held on to the location of the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Makar after Makar, I don't want to be here till Igi Zman Shel Shacharis, Shel Kriyash Man Shel Shacharis, even though the Chassidim had that a little elongated. So still, I think Dylan wants to sleep tonight, so we're only going to go through a few of them. But anybody's welcome to find it. It's on Eitzah Chochmah. You can go through it yourself if you like. One of the Makaris that we find in Shir Shir and Rab, it says, Alpha Bishachar Beis HaMikdash, Loi Bodlu Pamei Raglayim Gimel Panim Mashana. For 3 times a year, everybody still came to Yerushalayim and to the Beis HaMikdash. We have the famous Gemara in Makkas. Kvar Hoyer, Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Lezer, Ben Azai, Rabbi Shua, Rabbi Akiva. Shuv Pam Achas Hoyer Olam Yerushalayim. Kiva and Sheigiu Lahar Hatzofim. Karu Bigdaim. When they got to Har Hatzofim, they saw the Chorban, and they ripped their clothing. Kiva and Sheigiu Lahar Habayis. Ro Shul Sheyosem Beis Kodesh HaKadoshim. Eschilahim Beichen. Rabbi Akiva Mitzachim. The famous Gemara. Kiva turns. They asked Rabbi Akiva, "Why are you laughing?" And Rabbi Akiva says, "Why are you crying?" And they said, "What do you mean? The place that the Beis HaMikdash was stood, that only a Kohen Gadol was allowed in one day a year 3 times, and if he went in the 4th time, he was Mechav Mitzvah, and a shul was coming from there." And Rabbi Akiva says, "No, just as that nevuah was also Mekoyim, so too, as Hashem will see, Oidesh v'Zakenim v'Zakenis v'Chayvis Yerushalayim, a nevuah that all of you can see today, v'Poel, if you stand outside the Chorban Shul." But there we see clearly that the Chachamim went up to Har habayis, and they were on the Har, right next to the place of the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Maybe they weren't tamei meis, but they were there. About 300 years later, and there are Makaris in between, I'm not going through them all. Rabbi Yochanan ben Medaya b'Shem Rabbi Pinchas is Gemara in Yerushalmi Pesachim. It says Miman da'anan chamei rabbanon shalchan sadalayin tachas ha'ogel shel harabayis. What is he talking about there? He's talking, there's a shiloh. Where does one have to remove their shoes when entering to Machane Leviyim? Is that before the doorway or after the doorway? Which exact area? And Rabbi Yochanan ben Medaya said Eidos from this that we see the Chachamim. What are they doing? They're taking their shoes off there. That must be the Psak Halach. But again, another Makar that we see that people were visiting the Harabayis after the Churban. Here we have a Makar from Rabbi Rami Rabbi Chia Nasi, who lived right around the change of the millennium, around the times that the Crusaders came to and captured Yerushalayim. And he writes, when the Umayyads took over Eretz Yisrael in the year 638, they were the first Arab caliphate to come to Eretz Yisrael and to capture Yerushalayim, and they were noig minig toiv to the Israelim. Virtually Yisrael lovei labayis. They gave permission to the Yidden to come to Harabayis, livnais by beis tefillah midrash, and to build there a beis tefillah midrash. V'yakol goli Yisrael akrovim alabayis oilam alav b'chagim u'mayadim u'mispalim b'sleichel u'ma'amidim tefilosim kenegin temidim u'musafim v'al minig nogu kol yimei malchus yishmol at shepasha alabayis b'is hazois malchus edom herusha, referring to the Crusaders, v'yisiris malchus yishmol me'alav. Umene esahi chilu amikdash hamoy she'osu ese beis tefillah lehem v'amidu psilu telusam b'soichoi v'yisira tamid shemeneres yisrael me'lespal b'bayis v'lakom b'y mitzvos tefillah asher hu kenegin atmidim ki miyoyim shegovor elu rishon al-bayis lo yinichu yisrael lovoi b'soichoi af ish echod Yehudi eina nimtza b'Yerushalayim b'yomim me'elu. And for those who don't, I'm assuming I do this presentation a lot for those who don't speak Hebrew, or don't understand that, aren't on the same level of learning. So I have it here in English for anybody who like. Also gives me an excuse to finish my drink. Okay. So here we have a very important makar, a makar of Edus from Rambam Rabbi Chia Nasi, writing what was that this building over in the Makom of the Mikdash was used in some shape or form. Now, there's Vadai was a base medrash on Harabayis. Was it the Dome of the Rock? Is a debate amongst both Yiddish Chachaykim and Chachamim and Gedolim and non-Yiddish ones. We'll see Makar is on both ways. We have a piece of a manuscript found in the Cairo Geniza, where it also writes about what happened when the Yishmaelim came to take over Yerushalayim, and it says Va'omar, which is the name of the king, Ober Ibn Katav, who was the Arab king. He asked him, what's this rock over here? Is this Ibn Hashasiyah? It was originally covered in gold. As it says, it became over time. It became darkened and leadened. It was never covered in real gold. It was covered with a gold plate. And then, right in the 1950s, it was recovered in gold. And then, to our great sorrow, the Melech Yarden decided to recover it in 1990. He sold his palace, one of his palaces in London, so he had enough money to have more gold. Covered it over as well. Zabusha. Anyway, Rambam, in the year 1166, in our counting, or in the year Tav Kuf Chav Vav, came to Eretz Yisrael. He was a young man at the time, and he traveled first to Akkai. He was during his travels. He writes, this is all found in his Ksav Yad before Pirush Mishnayos for Rosh Hashanah. And he writes over there that when he traveled to Eretz Yisrael, he went through a whole bunch of hardships, and he took upon himself that if he would make it safely, he would have a Tainas Dibur, and down those days that it was just him and Hashem. And then when he got to Akka, and he made a whole Suda, and the Lashon uses there, Matanas Lev Yoinim and Mishloach Mana, is almost like a Sudas Purim. And then he travels to Yerushalayim. Ubiyom Shlishi b'Shabbos, Arba Yom l'Reich Mercheshvan, Shana Shisha v'Yesem li'Yitziro, Yatzanu me'Akkoi, La'alois l'Yerushalayim Tachas HaKana, because remember the Crusaders were in charge there. V'nechnasti l'bayis hagodol v'hakodesh, v'espalalti b'y b'yom hei, v'ov Yom l'Reich Mercheshvan. Now we all know that Rambam besides this makar, there's also another makar. He writes Vani, V'avi Moiri, V'savishli, Halach Beis Hashem Berogesh. Again, another term or a line that would be used only in the Beis Hamikdash. We know Rambam held that Kitcher Rishon Kitcher L'Shay V'Lo What? Amish Pim Shur Sam. Sefer Charedim also brings it down. Yeah. It's written originally in an Akdama, like an Eksav Yad, that is not. It's hard to find it. You can find it on Yitzhak Chachma. He says, "V'abayis Hagodav HaKadosh." Do you bench? Right. That's what else would it be referring to? Yes. Okay. And do you know of any other big bayis Gadol and Kodesh that is mentioned anywhere in Yerushalayim at that time? Definitely at that time there was nothing there.
Also, he made
Yes.
every year.
Yes, he also made a Suda, but we'll show things. At that point, no, as we just saw from the previous Makar, because the Crusaders.
Why not? Maybe it was the Smedish. They were standing there with the Smedish.
We just saw in the previous Makar that once the Crusaders took over, they turned it into a church. Here's Rambam. Here's the Ksav Yad itself. And really, it skips here. This is sort of like a Photoshop that they put the two words together. I don't know, I can't read it out there. Yeah. He does write over there that because what's the whole purpose of the Har? The Har is the Beis Hamikdash, right? Now, unfortunately, the Beis Hamikdash is destroyed in his time and still is in our times. But what else would it be referring to? It's referring to there was a structure, but what would it be? Bayis Haggadah V'Kadosh, you bench, right? In Ben Sayim, Bayis Haggadah V'Kadosh, Shenikra Shimcha Alav. Yeah, it's okay. So the yes. Now, before on, I just want to. Oh, sorry.
Maybe it was the Bells of Shield.
It's definitely the Bells of Shul. Definitely. Okay. Before I continue, I just want to point out Rambam. We all know Rambam holds the halacha very clearly that Kitcher Rishon Kitcher L'Shay V'Lo Love. Therefore, it's Alpi Pashas. Rambam didn't enter into the areas of the Dome of the Rock because Alpi Pashas he held like his shita unless he changed his mind. We have no raya that he changed his mind. Even though the minog, as we'll see, was about 100 or so years. Yeah. In Yerushalayim. Yes, but that was already after the Arabs retook over. It's not during the Crusader period. It's already after already after Saladin takes over Yerushalayim. Here we have the Edus from Pesachim in Regensburg. Some say it was part of the Baalei Tosfos. He was definitely the brother of the Rial Avon. And he writes, "V'halach Yerushalayim, ve'ein sham ela Rav Rama Tzeva, v'hu noisin mas harbe l'melech shemenichun sham." Clearly, we have good leaders to look up to in our continuing of doing similar things. Ve'hechol nasham shabon melech Yishmaelim b'mei kedem k'shahoisi Yerushalayim b'yada Yishmaelim ubo prutzim v'lshinu l'melech Yishmaelim v'amru zakin echad yesh b'neinu sheyadei makom ha'hechol v'azara v'dachak oisei ha'melech ad she'er loi v'melech ha'ya oyev Yehudim v'omer ani roitz l'ivnes hechol sham v'lo yispal b'oi ki'im Yehudim l'bana hechol. From this Makar, it's pretty clear that he held that the Dome of the Rock itself was the base medrash. Again, many yechedik on it, especially if we want to get into the sugya of how were they able to enter into it. As Meiri does mention that the Minik Pasha was to enter into the areas like Ravid. Lamaisa, the Gedei Acharinim, Mogen Avram, Mishnah Berurah, they hold that the halach is like Rambam. Definitely today, nobody should be entering into. It should be semech on the Ravid. Continuing along, we have the Talmud Ramban. Was to enter, as I said, like the Ravid. I said that. I said nowadays I'm not big enough, definitely. And even to even to say like we could even have a Havaminya to Paskin, not like the Mogen Avram, the Mishnah Berurah. But someone wants to. That's been, no, because again, the Shechina, we know value of any b'sham kalayam. The Shechina is always there, regardless. The question is, does Har Bayis have the din of the Gimel Machanis? Okay, but what does that mean? Value of any b'sham kalayam. Okay, I'm like I said, there's something to it. Even. Yeah. Beside the Shem L'Reav. Okay, maybe. As I said, they're poskim. I'm not one of them. You're welcome to ask them. Anyway, the Talmud Ramban writes as follows: Even shesiya banu malchi Ishmael binyan mefoyer ma'oid also oisay beis tefilo ubanu lamala min abinyan kipano ma'oid va'abinyan al beis kachi hakadoshim al heichal. Very clear makar that the dome of the rock is on top of the place of the Kodesh HaKadoshim in the heichal. And Rabbi Yehuda Levi, when he comes to Eretz Yisrael in the 1400s, and he writes a whole beautiful sefer all about the Mekomis HaKadoshim that he went there. One thing is interesting, he doesn't go to Meron. I don't know why. But he goes to the Kvarim in Tzfas, and Ben Yehuda, he points it out, he spends a lot of time in there. And then he comes to Yerushalayim. So who was buried there? There's definitely this. I mean, all the Kvarim, the Kvarim don't move, right? People when they're no, not the Acharinish Kvarim. Yeah, for sure. Yes, that would be afterwards. Meron also. Interesting. Anyway, moving along. He writes, "Gam chakarti." We could be here from Mamish till Zman Kriyash Ma'al tomorrow even. Gam chakarti al Evan Shasiya. Sha'orin ha'imunach alel. V'rabim oimrim ki hu tachas kipa achas gavoya v'yofa asher banu yishmelim b'mikdash v'yisagura techa kipa k'shegedelihi ma'oid v'ish lo yovei sham hainu amokum Evan Shasiya. At that point, people weren't allowed into the building itself. Rabbi Yehuda Levi Tenura. He writes that. Well, it's referring to anybody, I would imagine. It could be that they had it closed off, like at that point that they weren't allowed into the building. The building was closed. It was like a special building. The Radvaz, Rabbi Nadav ben Zimra, the Rav of Rishik, we say that? The chief rabbi of Cairo, the Rebbe of Dari, and some say the Rebbe of Rabbi Yosef of Cairo as well. And definitely contemporary, all the Talmidim include Rav Shlomo Kabetz, all the great Kabbalim and Tzfas. He was presented with the Shaila, where can one go in Har Bayis? There are people going on to the Gagin and Aliyas. Are they allowed to go there? Is it not allowed? And when he starts his tshuva, he starts off with the following hachlata, without any suffix. What's our starting point? He writes, Ein so ki adover bor shetachas hakipa sham even hashesiya beli suffix hanikra etzam al tzachra. Now, I always do this. I used to do this when I didn't have a lot of kids and I would go to the Kaisel for Friday night. So I used to always ask my Arab taxi driver on my way in. It's like, "Where's the Sachra?" They always have fun like them. They would get all excited that someone even knew what the Sachra was. Like, yeah, Sachra is the gold one, and Aks is the one to the right of the Kaisel. It's still called that. And at the end he goes through the whole tshuva afterwards, and he writes out clearly where one should go and how many amas one has to stand on either side. Sachra is the name for the stone. That's what they call the Sachra stone. I don't speak Arabic, so I can't tell you. It's actually interesting. Someone pointed this out to me, that when he writes in the beginning of the tshuva, he writes on this that people were going, where can one go in the Beis Hamikdash? It doesn't call it Har Bayis, it says Beis Hamikdash. But the Arabic name, the primary Arabic name that was used for the whole compound was Beit al-Maqdis, which is Beis Hamikdash. And Al-Haram al-Sharif, which is what the Arabs call today, the noble sanctuary, is not on the Aqsa Mosque, but rather the Beis Hamikdash once was there. And this was used widely from the 12th century till the 1920s, when in their English guide, the Waqf write very clearly on page 1 that there's the connection between this site and the site of the Solomon Temple was beyond dispute. Only once they realized that the Yidden were coming back, they start changing history. Anyway, the Radvaz goes through the entire tshuva, writing where one can go, and then at the end, he's chayzer. He does chazar. He writes, Ein safek, ki even hazois asher tachas hakipa hi even hashesiya asher aleh haya ha'arin bebeis kodeshei hakadoshim. And we can see that there's a long Maser for this, but this is exactly what the Radvaz is passing. Halacha lemaisa. Where can we know definitively where the Kodesh HaKadoshim was? And therefore, he writes, and these are a few poskim, I'll quote a few of them soon. The Bach, the Shari Tshuva, Birkei Yosef, Pasach Shulchan, Chavetz Chaim, many others rely on this halacha lemaisa. And therefore, Radvaz writes, Yesh lasis tam leminik shenogu kol ha'olam, la'ales boisim aliyos, lirois misham har bayis kuloi. Shein lecha pesach v'lo aliyah k'fi ashir, shekasafti, hilkoch mutu l'skarv, achapsachim v'lalis el aliyos. You're right, passing the halacha lemaisa, the taka can go, and there's no way to say that they're doing is wrong. The Marit writes as follows: Mutter likane sham kishetibol lifnim b'Har Habayis. One can go into Har Habayis, v'kasher zachini Hashem la'alis v'ler sham es pnei Hashem, like he himself personally was zeichet to do. And the Chida writes in Birkei Yosef, Mutter li'eskar vel pischei beis hamikdash v'likanes la'aliyas asher sav beis hamikdash. What are those aliyas? They're inside Har Habayis. Is an elevated platform which the Dome of the Rock sits upon, and there are buildings alongside. Some of them that still exist today, some of them that don't exist now, which would be on this part of the Har, on the west. So here, the Kaisel will be over here, and you're looking at it from the east side. Based on English would be here, based on the Messiah. And there were people that were going into these buildings here. And that was the aliyas that they're talking about, the Gagan aliyas. And the maskana was that it was totally mutter to enter into those areas because they're not close enough to Machaneh Shechin. The Shloah Kadosh, when he came to Eretz Yisrael, he stayed for a few months in Yerushalayim. And the Rav Sholem Feivish, was the Abvezin of Krakow, sent him a letter asking him how could he do so, because we know that Arizal didn't come to Yerushalayim because maybe he's misopik where the Beis Hamikdash stood, and therefore as a suffix, every step you take in Yerushalayim, you might be walking on the suffix Beis Hamikdash, suffix Machaneh Shechina. So the Shloah wrote back a very, very strong letter. He writes, Da, ki me'olam lehoya suffix b'makom Beis Hamikdash, k'moi she'in suffix shehoya Beis Hamikdash, v'sheyeh Beis Hamikdash, b'ezrat Hashem, kach ein suffix b'makom Beis Hamikdash, ki hu zeh, v'lo hoya nis'alam min ha'ayin afilu rega echad. Afa pi shoyes Yerushalayim halechas mi'amalacha v'lamalacha, mikol makom le'nifseka ha'kabala v'ya'idiyah. Very clear. We have a Messiah knowing exactly where the Beis Hamikdash was. The Makom HaMikdash, it stayed with us. We always knew about it. Any Breslovers here? Shmuel Horowitz, the Rav of the Breslov community in 1921 in Eretz Yisrael and in Yerushalayim. And he went on Sukkot. U'baboiker hishkim halachti lemikvah v'achakach halachnu la'alis l'regal ad Har Habayis ad l'mokom HaMikdash ad ha'mokom shemutu l'tumei mesim leilech boy. And just because it's so gishmak, I'll show it from the Sefer itself. V'amarnu b'nei chatoinu melech rachman aval hakol bal peh ki la'abit b'sidr lo yamanichim hagoyim v'hashamash ha'aravi shel mokom mikdash b'shum oifen. Just like today. V'chein etzel shar mekoymes hakdoshim k'ma kivrei malchus beis David hagoyim lo yinoislim la'habit b'sidr. Ki yireim, what were they afraid of? Shelo yipalu b'tfila li'goel. They know the truth. If only we'd believe it as best as they do. V'afal pikein asinu sham eze pamim ba'alisenu l'regel rikud godel b'magal v'nigun v'hashamash hagoya nizker le'el ro v'ara boi b'chamosai aval lo yochol asos klum. This past Rosh Hashanah, we had a regular minyanim for Shachar and Mosaf on the Har, and we were already able to bring up small cards with the Lashon. Yeah, committing grow. Actually, we did. We had another paper that afterwards. We didn't say it was part of Chazaras Hashatz. They said Chazaras Hashatz by the place where we normally daven. And then as they walked around, some people said it. There was a back and forth. Rav Weber can do it anyway, Balpa. So the last group that went up was a bunch of Nanachs. They were singing and dancing. The police were so angry. From the Kvutza that holds that Rav Nachman is buried in Tzfaz. I once asked them, so why are you davening here? And you're supposed to be in Uman. He's like, what do you mean? Rav Nachman's in Tzfaz, like Tova Bar. Like, you didn't know that? So why are they not there? Because Rav Nachman said it's the din in the minhag of davening by Kvarim on Erev Rosh Hashanah. So they go to Tzfaz on Erev Rosh Hashanah and then they come to Yerushalayim. Someone gave me one of the Breslovers who is a big Ohavei Eretz. He put out a whole chaveret about why that everybody has to put the focus on Har Habayis now from Rav Nachman. Like a whole diuk in his words that based on the Rashi Tevis of the words. I don't remember it about Pet, but it was a very interesting back and forth. It was interesting. Anyway, the Breslovers definitely have a very unique connection to Har Habayis. So, as we mentioned before, we know that the Mishnah tells us Har Habayis chamesh me'esalam ama chamesh me'esama. Ruba min adorim, sheni le min amizach, shlishi min atzafan, miuta min amarev, makom shayirov midosei, shamay yerav tashmisha. What the Mishnah is talking about here is that the base of English was not centered on Har Habayis, the original Har Habayis. Instead, there was a certain amount of space between the walls of the Har and the base of English itself. Most of the amount of space was to the west. Second most was to the east. third most was to the north, and a small amount was to the west. Sorry, I might have messed it up. I meant south, east, north, west. Just if anybody's confused. Okay, the Mishnayos continue giving us exact dimensions of the Amma, exactly how big the Beis HaMikdash was, and it was 135 Amos over here by 322 over here, if we're going to count, including the Ezes Nashim, right? Or 187 if we're just going to go with the actual Azara itself. Okay, it's interesting though, the Mishnah, which is so meduyik in the exact amount of Amos, doesn't give us an exact amount of Amos in this Mishnah. It just tells us Rubai, Sheni, Shlishi. Why? So the Beis HaMikdash was on a slant and wasn't exactly lined up with the walls, because the Beis HaMikdash has to face the Ruchas HaOlam. When the sun rises in the morning, it shines into the door of the Heichal. Therefore, it has to be facing cardinal direction of east. But the Beis HaMikdash itself can't be, and because of the steepness of the Kidron Valley, come on my tour and you'll see more about that. Okay, so now that we have the starting point, we've what?
There's no side on this. How much?
There's the Messiah that we have is that the Dome of the Rock is the Kodesh HaKadosh. That's much that we do have.
Right.
Okay, since we know how large the Beis HaMikdash was, and we have a starting point, as we said, that was our original Nocha. If we can figure out a place to place the Beis HaMikdash within this very large Har HaBayis area, then at least we can know. No, it's much larger than 500 Amos, because Hordis expanded the Har to the south, to the north, and to the west, not to the east. We'll talk about it in a second. So, now that we've saw that we have a Messiah, a very strong Messiah, that the location of the Kodesh HaKadoshim is inside the Dome of the Rock, and we have the Mishnayos Midrash which says 135 Amos, and we can place that means the Kodesh HaKadoshim at Amma number 75 on either side. If we want to take the whole thing, be extra machmer, take a Chazon Ish Amma as well if you want to be even more machmer. We're going to keep trying to place it out. We can try to figure out exactly where the Beis HaMikdash stood on Har HaBayis. The blue line that is going to come on now is the current Herodian full Har HaBayis, and the original Chamesh Me'as Amma with the Beis HaMikdash would be approximately there. The reason why we place the end of the Chamesh Me'as Amma here and here is for this reason. If I was to build a wall, so you have bricks on top of bricks, right? You see a full wall with no break. When you get to the corner, you see the cornerstone, and it's built up like that. So I wanted to expand the wall. I'm not going to knock the wall down. I'm just going to build another wall next to it. So you'll see a tefer. You'll see a seam in between, which is exactly what you see over here. Herodian stone, pre-Herodian stone. Some of these stones, if you go farther down, will date back to Shlomo HaMelech itself. Because the Beis HaMikdash, even during Bayis Rishon, went through many renovations. And especially they rebuilt, there were some parts of the wall that needed to be renovated, certain stones that were added on top. There are not many stones that still exist from the times of Shlomo HaMelech. One or two of them do exist, and they're much lower down. It would be roughly around here. If you ever go, if anybody goes to with Rabbi Yehuda Levi, and he takes you through the Muslim cemetery over there.
Bottom coastal tunnels are not.
No, the coastal tunnels are on this side. So in fact, this wall did not exist during times of Shlomo HaMelech at all. This is only existing the last 83 years of the second Bayis Sheni. Until Hordis expands this is the original wall. At this part of Har HaBayis, you can actually see the top of this stone. Look at this cornerstone. It's built into the stairwell here. But let's focus more on the Beis HaMikdash. The Beis HaMikdash should be here, facing the Ruchas HaOlam. That means that the only place of Kares, which we'll get into, would be inside the Azara itself. Let's go back to Rambam. We'll see that map more, so don't worry, you get to see the last of that. Rambam says, in Hilchos Beis HaMikdash, Perek Gimel, Halacha Beis, Gimel and Dal, Lefikach, Meshalchenes HaMetzora Chutz LeGimel Machanes Shu Chutz LeYerushalayim, Umeshalchen Zavois, Nidois, V'Yeledois, Chutz L'Shtei Machanes Shu Chutz L'Har HaBayis. Tamei Meis, Afilo HaMeis Atzmoi, Muter Likonis L'Har HaBayis, Shenemar Vayikach Moshe Es Atzmoi Yosef Imoi, Midarshin Imoi, B'mechitzosoi, or b'machane levio. So, going back to our map, we have Machane Yisrael. It's also for Mitzvah to go there. We have Machane Levio. There's also for Zav and a Balkari with the Chi of Malchus one of the things that it bothers me to no end when I read these articles about against those who go up to Har Bayis, and they say anybody who goes up a Tamei Balkari who goes into Machane Levi is Chayiv Malchus, Chayiv Karis, Chayiv Karis. What Chayiv Karis? The only Chayiv Karis is for a Tamei Meis to enter into Machane Shechina of the Eraisa. Tamei Meis that enters into Machane Shechina Derabanan. It's unclear if he even gets any Malchus at all. Maybe Malchus Mardis. What Malchus would he get?
He doesn't have a way to get in without passing.
No, if he's not a Balkari,
If he's about, we're talking about a Tamei Mes who enters into that area. We're all Tamei Mesim, right? So let's say we enter in this area here. Now, the Radvaz in his Tshuva says that it's perfectly mutter to enter into this area. What's pshat? He's basing on the fact that Midaraisa, the Torah has a koyach to actually make the ground itself kaddish. But the Rabbanon don't have a right to add something kedusha to the ground. They can add kedusha to the building. So when the building was built, it had the kaddish, and that's why the Mishnah tells us, Nechel, you can't go. Tamei Meis is not allowed in. But once the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, it's no longer there. So how do we get out of the tumas? Right, person is tuma. Well, he has tumas zav. He needs a mayim chayim and zayin nikiyim. Although we're not chayshish for zav, but someone who is zav, I believe it's known today as prostatitis. It's a condition where Keri leaves the aver without any hearer and at random intervals. And if a person is in such a matzah, first of all, go to a doctor. You can get medicine for it, and then you get out of that problem. But if it happens that you become the Magen Avraham is chayshish for tumas zav, but it's a chash rochik because he wasn't chayshish for tumas zav itself. He was saying that when a person would go to the bathroom, maybe tumas zav came out. So if that's the case, then nobody ever, during the Zman HaBayis, they never ever went to the bathroom. How did they ever get out of going to the bathroom? It's a guy. I'm not saying, I understand the Minchas Yitzchak held like that. Lamaisa, the Gemara says many times over that we're not chayshish for zav. Unless the person knows he's tumas zav, he doesn't have to be chayshish for it. Shiva Drachim Boitkenes zav. We're all familiar with that from our Cheder days in 6th grade, right? What? Yes. But that person who has tumas zav, go to mayim chayim and wait zayin nikim. Zava, Yoledes, Nida, and Balkari needs a mikvah. After you go into a mikvah, they can go into Har Bayis immediately. Either Tfilim, they're not going to the Azara. Tfilim is only also in the Azara. So, just to come, by the way, that is actual paras and numas. I don't know if they're kosher though. Probably not. Because of the amount of whether they have black hairs or they're used or any of the things. But this is what a paradum looks like. If you're thinking of a red fire truck, no. Okay. Yeah. Since we don't have para aduma today, therefore it is aser gomer to enter into Machane Shechina. We all agree to this. All those who go up to Har Bayis today are 100% in agreement. But not according to the Ravid. We hopefully are charedim, so we're machmer. We paskin like the Magen Avraham, the Mishnah Berurah. The halach is like Rambam. Midaraisa, that means you cannot enter into the Azara. If a person does so, they are chayiv karis. Midarabonon, you're not allowed to enter into the area of the chel. The rest of Har Bayis is mutter for a Tamei Meis to enter into, without any problem. A zav that goes to mayim chayim and waits zayin. A zava, nida, yeledes, and balkari that is table in a mikvah is mutter to enter into Machane Levi. A zava? Okay. Mayim chayim is any sort of spring. You can get in Lifta, you can get in the Shilach. Go to the Riz mikvah. This is part of. Okay. By the way, I was on a Cholamay trip somewhere over here somewhere in upstate New York, and I saw another part of them. So just had to put the picture in. It's definitely not kosher. It's black over there. What? Okay. Ask me when the cameras are not rolling. Okay. So back to our map. So here we have now. This is the exact route that is taken by every person who goes up to Har Bayis. We start off over here by the Kaisel. We go up the bridge. We walk over here. Over here is where we daven. We have a daily minyan for Shachris at 7 o'clock. And again at 9:30 for Al Hasidim. We have... It's too early. 7 o'clock I understand. The 9:30? Oh yeah, that's the Ashkama menu for you. Yeah, here we have a base medrash where we sit and we learn. Over here, right around the area where the outside base medrash. Yeah, but it's base medrash nonetheless. Yeshiva Sarabais, eh? Ashrei Yeshiva V'Sechel. Over here, Shivti B'Beis Hashem. Here we continue up the route over here onto the Rodian Harabayas. We walk up to here till the Ramah. We do not go onto the elevated platform because the only area where kares exists on Harabayas is on the elevated platform. Not all of the elevated platform, but on the elevated platform. Therefore, we're machmer to not go onto the elevated platform at all. That way, because there's no gvul there, there's no fence there, you don't know where you're going to step over. So our Rabbanim, including Rav Elio Weber and Rav Yisrael Ariel, have instituted that should be the hanhaga. And then we continue going around here. We come up to here to the step. The police don't allow us to go past the first step anyway, but according to halacha, we'd be allowed to go up the steps and another 11 amas inward onto the Ramah. But again, we don't go onto the Ramah, and then we come out. So to say that anybody who's going to Harabayas today as part of the Yeshiva's Harabayas or part of any of the other groups that go, to say that the Chayav Kares, I don't understand how you could say such a thing. So now, let's be 100% open and clear. There are two ways to go up to Harabayas today. Yeah, I'm going to explain. Goyim, okay, if it was up to me, the things would be very different. But unfortunately, I don't control the government, not yet. Maybe if we all would move there and we all vote them in, we'd have who wants to be Rosh Mimshala, right? And maybe we'll be able to put the Torah Halacha as the law of the land. Right now, Bez Hashem. Kima Ba'agula. So, if tourists that come up to Harabayas today, Goyim or Frayidin that don't look particularly Jewish, will come up to this bridge over here. The police will check them and allow them onto the Har. They can go, according to Israeli law, they can go anywhere they want on the Har, except inside the buildings. But they can enter very easily into Machane Shechina, and there's nothing we could do to stop them.
Where by the bridge?
They go up the bridge and they go walk. If you come dressed like any of you are dressed, what? A guy is not allowed into Machane Shechina with a chiv. What? Midarbanan. Okay, Chayav Misa Midarbanan. I'm in. Who wants to join me? Okay, but yeah, it's more a problem for Yidden. But again, even if they don't understand, if they don't know, so it's a shaygig of a chiv. Again, then we can definitely they have who to be semichan. What? They could be semichan. They're even, and we can find the term left, right, and center for anybody we want. Lamaisa. If they're those that go up dressed like me and you, right? The police will make them wait at the staging area. There are 3 reasons for the police for them doing so. They surround our group and they escort us. 3 reasons. Number 1, to keep us safe. Number 2, to protect us from going into the forbidden areas. The route that we take was set up by the Rabbanim. They follow that rule to a T. You're not allowed to deviate from it. If you try to leave the group, repeatedly they will stop you and eventually arrest you if you continue to try. And number 3, to prevent us from doing provocations. Okay. Taurus, they let to do whatever they want.
So if you dress like Haredi, then they don't let?
Right. Welcome to apartheid. Zafashtinger Medina. Right? So,
It's only temporary.
but only temporary. I mean, so the importance for people, it's funny that the ire that is put by those that are those who go up to Harabayas is not directed at the tourists, but rather at those who do go up Kalacha, who continually to encourage and stand by the entrance and announce before every ascension, before every aliyah, both in Hebrew and in English, and sometimes French, depending who's there, all the rules. We're going up to Harabayas, B'taro. After going to a mikvah, those who have not gone to a mikvah, please return after going to a mikvah. What? No, not allowed to go up with anything Jewish. You can go with your yarmulke and your tzitzis, and that's it. People have hidden. Careful.
I think that the soldiers are not bring tzitzis.
There are soldiers who have tzitzis, but
Not in the Machne Shechina.
in Machane Shechina. I know definitely the police officers and the soldiers. They do wear tzitzis. What? I hear. I'll let them know. The dotted line is sometimes there are those who are machmer for the shita of Goren and who the Talmidei of Rav Dov Lior any extra shita that they could be machmer, they're machmer, so they will go this route, and the whole group will follow them. What? Itamar Ben Gvir, I've seen him walk this route many a time. I know many other Talmidim of Rav Lior who don't follow his thing. Rav Lior has said many times also that he holds it as just as a chumrah. Me'ikar adin, he's seimech on the Messiah, that this is the location of the Kodesh of the Beis HaMikdash, and therefore he said, why not to be machmer? I will tell you myself. Last year on Pesach, during Ramadan, the Arabs blocked up this whole area. We couldn't walk on it. And the only way for us to go onto the Har was to turn into this area here. And Rav Lior paskined that that everybody's mechuyev to enter into that area of Machane Shechina, because he held kibush and he holds that it's there are definitely places can hold that it's not the geder of Machane Shechina. If they're blocking this area and nobody's going up, then they've won. That's
leaving 5 minutes afterwards.
Fine, but it shows that they weren't able to deter. If they're able to deter us by that, they'll do it every day and stop everybody from going up.
Yeah, but you're not being mekam kibbush, you're not.
We'll debate it. Anyway, it wasn't my psak. You're welcome to the Mechaber Lepnoch. You can go and ask Rav Lior. Weiter gegangen. Okay? So now, after all that we've gone through so far, it seems very clear to us all, hopefully, if I've done my job well, that it's very, very mutter to go to Har Bayis, except for for between 7 and 13% of Har Bayis. So then, Taka, why does I would imagine most of you in this room before you came to the share were 100% convinced that it's also to go to Har Bayis. And definitely most from the Yidden have that opinion. So where did that come from? So here we have a very not accurate, because there's far more that I'd like to put into this timeline, very, very bekitzer nimrod's timeline of the base of the area of Har Bayis from Chorban Bayis Sheni till the year 2000. On top you'll see the different kingdoms that have had control over the area, and on the bottom you'll see the kufas of the Chachomim, from the Tanoim down through the Achronim. We have Chorban Bayis Sheni in the year 70 CE. We have the Gemara Makkos roughly around the 130. We have the Bar Kokhba revolt at 135 and 137. We have the Beis HaMikdash being partially started, the process of starting to rebuild the Beis HaMikdash during Julian the Apostate in the year 362, 363. We have the Gemara of Rabbi Yochanan Mendai, which recorded roughly around 430. We have the Dome of the Rock construction in 687 to 691. We have the Edus of Rama and Chianasi, that during that Kufa, Yidden were going up to the base in the Har Bayis, and they were going into that area. There was definitely a shul there. We have Rambam visiting Har Bayis in 1166. We have the Rimilaniel visiting Har Bayis in 1210. I didn't quote his Makar. We have Meiri, as we mentioned, writing that the minhag Pasha was to go inside. We have Vadim Vartanura, Radvaz, Ma'arit. We have Moses Montefiore, who came up with a chiddush that he's going to build a box and go inside into Machane Shechina, and all the Chachamim yelled at him, probably rightfully so. We have Reb Shmuel Horowitz in 1921, and return of Har Bayis to the hands of the Yidden in 1967. Okay, so for most of this we have pretty straightforward, many people coming and going and knowing and being knowledgeable, except for the Tkufa of the Ottomans. There's a big break until Moses Montefiore. Why? What happened then? The Crimean War. After the Crimean War, the Ottomans relaxed one of the concessions they had to do was to relax the prohibition of non-Muslims going on to Har Bayis, and that's when people started to go back on in some way, shape, or form. What happened in that interim? We have the following edus from different achronim. We have the Chido writes v'tzarich l'idea b'zman hazeh imutar manu likanos teich Har Bayis v'afsha goyim ein manichan oiseh likanos sham mepnei shu beis tefillah shalahem v'yesh hakana b'davar. So Reb Chaim Alpadri is writing that in Derech HaKodesh, he's writing that tachlis, even if we were be able to be mekayim the mitzvahs, but not practical, we're just not able to do so. We see this also from Mishkanis Lavir Yaakov. He writes as follows: "Im al koponim hoy nechnos machshav lahar bayis v'among mishmudah likonas v'mekayim mitzvahs merimik t'shalei konas v'makoyle v'chulu ma she'ein kain kivan she'ein nechnos machshav klal afilu b'makom shemotah likonas." Mitam she'iev shar klal likonas sham ad she'yutan rishos v'yamam shalei yoram hoydo. They don't give us rishos. So he was regarding the question: is it practical to do the mitzvahs Ma'ir Mikdash? Yes, technically you can go and you can go into the Makom Samiturim and Mekayim the mitzvahs Ma'ir Mikdash, but practically it's not allowed. Yeah. No, some Sefer answers him that that's a different Nakuda. He's saying that Lu Yitzor we can go through the bring a karbonos bizman as a, but practically they're not going to allow it. Yeah. And after 1967, prior to 1967, once people started coming up to the Har, people were going, especially after the Reform, right, and after the times of Moshe Mir and Teferi till the Jordanians took over, in the times of Rav Kook, many people were going to Har Bayis and going into Machane Shechina. And therefore Rav Kook put out a kol koreh against going up, as we'll discuss in a few minutes. But after 67, the same thing happened. My grandmother, she's living well, she's High On The Har, 93 years old, she has a picture of herself in the Dome of the Rock. She was not so from at the time, right? It was a normal thing after 67. The Har was open, people were going all over, and Rav Avad Yosef writes as follows: Can I say it with the Sephardi? It's working. It's working. אלו שנכנסים בעוונותינו הרבים, הם לא שואלים דת, לא שואלים חכמה, נכנסים אפילו למסגד עומר, ששם ודאי הייתה אזהרה. מה דעת יש לה? היא נכנסת במקום כרת, בית קדשי הקדשים, נכנס במסגד עומר בפנים. Mesgad Omar is the name of Dome of the Rock, built by Omar ibn Khattab. Technically built by Abd al-Malik, but the world gives Omar the credit for that. Right? So what do we see from the words of Rabbi Yosef? He's decrying the great Chil Amakom HaMikdash. What he's telling us through his words is that he knows bevadei that that's the location of the Kedesh HaKadosh. They're going inside Machane Shechina. And therefore, we have the Gemara in Eruvin. Amalei Rav, Dika Motza v'Goder B'Geder. Rashi. Amei Aratzim Hoyu, Umezalzim B'Mitzvahs, V'Hichmar Aleim Lasa Siyog, V'Archikon Min Avero, Ka'odam HaGoyder Bika Prutza L'Shemer. And therefore we have all the Mamorim. I always love, by the way, everybody, like, someone starts going to the Sugya of Har Bayis because he knows they're going, they send me a picture of it. It's like, we got you. Cook said it's also to go. Like I never saw that. Here we have the Michtav from Rav Kook, where it says, Isser Chomer Shal Aknisa L'Mokom HaMikdash V'Har Bayis. And after 67, we have another Kol Koreh, and in Tavshin Samach Daled, they reiterated that Kol Koreh. But we have Edus from the grandson of Rav Kook, Rav Shlomo Ra'anan, Hashem Yinkom Domoy. He writes, Mestaref ani bezel l'kiras harabon ma'mamlitzim la'ales l'har habayis b'mkoim esamutarim ki ze dover boru l'loi tzel shel sofik ki hasaba rabbeinu harav Avram Yitzchak HaKohen Kook u'bnoi Rav Tzvi Yehuda Kook zecher tzadikim l'vrocho loi osu la'ales b'mkoim esamutarim u'bevadai mitzvah gedoyla l'reshes ha'makom ha'kodesh midei zorim va'af v'rak bo'ofen ha'mutar. We have a chiyuv, but only bo'ofen ha'mutar. And here we see very clearly from the words of the Rav himself. Right before, Rav Kook had a sicha with the head of the British, and this is found in Eitzes of Ram Yitzchak Kohen in page 328, I think. If anybody actually wants to see it inside, let me know. I'll send you in the car. Eitzes of Ram Yitzchak Kohen, and in it it's a conversation that he had between the head of the Tsar of the British. And he asked them, Amarta sheprisamta hazara lemevakrim hayudim shalei lechas l'shetach hacharam. Is it true that you put out a warning not to go to Har Bayis? Charam al Sheif, right?
Why was he concerned about it?
He's curious. He's having a conversation. So he writes, his kavanti. Yeah. So what does Rav Kook answer? Look. I can look it up. It says I should have looked it up before. I didn't. If you want, I can look it up.
No, because he was a Jew. Small was a Jew.
I don't think it was Samuel, but
From
now I know why there's streets named after him. Okay, but I'll look it up afterwards. Exactly who it was. I have it downloaded. He says over here, is it true? So what does he answer? His kavanti rak l'shetach beis hamikdash ha'atik. Only meant for the Malkum of the Beis HaMikdash. V'pnei Kedushasai, ken, v'pnei Kedushasai. Ch'i she'ani mavin, v'pnei atuma ha'ishit, he writes, yes, Mekivan she'amalkum hu kodesh, yesh tzarich b'tara miyuchedet, referring to Parah Aduma, Shaloi titkanin b'loi siyua shel hashgacha al yono. And it's kein hu mitzvah da'at hayud is lesser ad hayom agulu l'chol yudi l'konas l'mugam migdash. Zu ha'minig shalanu b'yachas shel yudim ma'acharidim. They're not going to... Paraduma. Right. It says paraduma. It says it needs a special thing. But again, very clearly from his words, and you know how Gabayim are, right? The Rav says, don't go to Har Bayis, meaning the Mokum English. They put up a thing, also go to the Har. Nuance is lost. But on the flip side, and people always say, but what happens? The Rabbanim say, the Rabbanim made a Gzeira, can't go. But not all Rabbanim. We have a list of a whole bunch of Rabbanim here who are Mater, Aliyah, Lahar, and right of the great mitzvah. We have the Rabbani Yesha. Rabbi Yashiv? What about him? I'll talk about Rabbi Yashiv in a minute. So here we have Tshuva after Tshuva. We have Ramosha Feinstein writing in 1962 when it wasn't even possible for people to go. He was talking about the Shaila. He writes, "Hayesh mokum b'har habayis shemutarim tmei mesim likonis Hashem af min derabanan shu avachel shu lifnim ha'asayrik hayrum mutar mikol tzad af maravi likonis tmei mesim ad ha'asayrik shayrechav ezamis." There are those Talmidim, including Rav Chaim Ezuchet and Rav Tendler, who say that Rav Moshe was privately mater aliyah to them. Yes. We have Rav Dov Lior writing a Michtav. We have Rav Sroy Dabalinsky, the Talmud of the Chazon Ish, writing to Rav Yosef about the Blansky. Okay, well, I'm getting two things. Shar Nikanor and Rav Sroy Dabalinsky. All right. Yes, so the Talmud of the Chazon Ish. What? No, he didn't write. He didn't go up. But he's writing about this nekuda of building a base knesses on the Har. Go ahead and read it if you want. I'll send you his letter. You can find it also in the Sefer. It's also brought down in Laman Beis Hashem Elokeinu of Akshat Teilach. Yeah, we have also Rabbi Tzim Mutzafi also writing Mitzvah Rabbi Lishtadol Latzel Kol Shnas and Mishetach Harabayis Hamakudash. The Spal Sham. Al-Abedus V'Agula. And he continues writing. He writes very strongly about the great Inyan to go. Here we have Rabbi Yisrael Yankov Fisher writing about whether or not one has to be cheshish for Zov, and Dati Ein Lo Cheshish Zeh, writing about making a shul and going into Har Bayis after Tefillah, and a list of over 200 Rabbanim, Roshei Kahalim, Roshei Yeshivas, Rabbanei Shchuna, Rabbanei Ir, Rabbanei Yeshuvim, that, how will we forget?
What is the Rabbi Yosef right?
Yeah, he does right. that I can't answer what they call. Rav Yosef very okay. So what we know from Rav Yosef's writings, let's be clear. Yeah, Rav Yosef very clearly gave a psak. However, we got a lot more to go. We're only halfway through. No, just joking. We're mostly way there. Rav Yosef very clearly in written psak and in person has said, "Do not go to Har Bayis." Okay, we're all in agreement to that. What I'm showing from his word. What I'm showing from his words, so what I brought from the Madanei Melech, that he was. Yeah, BM is not. What? I showed that he writes that those who are going in are Nebuch, Chever. We can go. What he writes, what I showed from here is that he's in his writings about why he answered. He also writes very clearly that we know where the Makom English is. So it's not based on that. Okay, he's saying that those that are going up, they hold this. They're not going. They're going into places that they're going into Vade Makom Ashchina. Right. Rav Adia said very clearly. Now, Rav Meir Mezuz has said on tape that Rav Adia have told him that those who know the halachas and know the gvulas and know very clearly where to go can go to Har Bayis. What? If the Rabbanut wants to make a mechitza, would be the happiest. First, let them have the police officers go to the mikvah and actually care about the halacha. They don't want it. I don't know why. I can't answer. One day. When I become in charge of the Rabbanut, which is not, I doubt will happen, that will be one of the first things they change. That would be the easiest. So we see that there are definitely Rabbanim on both sides of this issue. There are Gedolei Olam from in the list that I have before, and anybody who wants the list, I'm happy to send it to them. Of over 200 Rabbanim, including great Gedolei Olam, who have mattered and have said that it's mitzvah Gedolei to go up. So Machlokes. When the remind me when the camera's off. Okay. Now, what's tachlis? Tachlis we saw again. We went through that this was the Mokum Asher Bochar. This is the place that was chosen from Adam, from the Brias HaElam, through all the Ovos and through the Beis Hamikdash, and that it still has kedusha. And we learned about the intense power of tefillah that goes on there. Yet, what else can we mekayim over there? So we have the mitzvah of Moira Mikdash. Says Rambam, mitzvah hasei liyira min hamikdash. How do you do it? Ve'ezu yirasai. Lo yikonis adam la'ar bayis b'makoloi, b'menal shabraglov without shoes. Oy b'avmadosai, oy b'avik shal raglov. Oy b'mois atzurim loy b'sadinoi. Ve'in sarach loimer she'asa l'roik b'chol har bayis, el im nizdamin loy roik miblioi b'kisusai. V'lo yaseh har bayis derech she'yikonis mipesach zu v'yotz mipesach shekenegdo k'dei l'katzar derech ele akifu mibachutz. V'lo yikonis loy ele l'dvar mitzvah yoytzeh min hamikdash kipi she'poisea achar tefillah la'acharav kol zeh liyira min hamikdash. So what is Rambam telling us? You would think, if we want to be Moir Mikdash, we would avoid the Mikdash. Stay far away from it, right? So it's a pachad. It says, punkt verkehrt. Exactly the opposite. How do you do it? You go on and you treat it with respect. But to avoid it, it's like a person says, you know what, I want to be super machmer and keep it up. What am I going to do? I'm never going to talk to my father again. I'm going to stay like far away. I'm going to run away. And whenever he's in the same one city, I'm going to be in another city. Or just stay, I'm going to best to keep it up. The way you do it is by doing it and treating it with respect. I have another mitzvah of avodah b'mikdash, to serve Hashem in the mikdash through karbonos, tefillah, and hishtachavayim. No, this is actually a great story. Anybody remember the terrorist attack that happened in 2017, where a Waqf member shot 2 Israeli police officers? Right? They were goyim, they're Jews, but generally, by the way, most police officers on the Har are Jews, because they speak both Arabic and Hebrew, which is helpful for their thing. Usually the higher-ranking officers are Jewish. Anyway, so the Israeli government put up metal detectors. Our entrance has metal detectors, but theirs didn't, so they put up metal detectors. And then they made azam achol. We're not going into Har Bayis. Oh, so we took full advantage of that day.
The mitzvah referred to the Har Bayis or to the Mikdash?
So let's take a look. Mitzvah chamishus ish etzivonu la'avoda yis'alev chvar nichpal zeh atzivu ipomim ba'omer v'avatam es Hashem alekechem ve'omar v'oises avodu v'mishnosei shel Rabbi Eliezer b'noi shel Rabbi Yossi HaGlili amru minayin le'eket tefillah mitzvah mehacha es Hashem alekecha tira v'oises avod v'omer avodo b'teirosoi v'avodo b'mikdashoi koloimar la'leches shom le'espal boi v'negdoi k'may shabir shalem alav shalom. It's a mitzvah to daven by the mikdash. Could go l'leches shom le'espal boi.
Where is this guy?
This is on the east. So when we were facing, these are what's the name? Those are like nalebad slippers. I'll be right over here. It's a big sugya. The Gemara definitely says that is makish the Yom Kippur to going on there, and there it just says nale or is the problem. The flip side would be shal nalchamer aglecho. Definitely everybody agrees on the Azara. You have to be yechef. You have to be completely barefoot. Whereas in Machane Leviah, that's the machlekes.
You have to go with socks?
What?
You have to go with socks?
Chayra?
Why?
Azara. Because it'll be chatzitza maybe. Anyway, that is on this path over here. Right over here is where that ishtachavai took place.
So it's mere mitzvah
The Rambam
to-
holds that the whole Shmoneh Esrei has to be like that.
Yeah. That would be Rambam. Okay. If I remember from the Rambam, it's after. Yeah.
So is it more mitzvah to do Ishtachva in Har Bayis than the Koisen Plaza?
Chayra, yeah, because it's on Har Bayis HaMekudosh.
No.
Definitely.
Say the Daibeh Mikdusha, don't say the Har Bayis.
Mikdashai is also v'negdai. But it would be l'chayra, the mikdash is in general. When we refer to Beis Hamikdash in the general term, just as the Arabs call it Beit Al Maqdis, they call the entire thing. When they call it Al Aqsa, the whole thing. The mikdash is referring to Arabais, and in Kama Makama Kairis, as I mentioned, the Man Beis Hashem Lekinu, he has the whole list of every place it's referred to. You're welcome to go through it there. And this is a great picture by the on Yom Kippur. A guy took it. One of the Arabs took it. Look at this handsome guy. We're now going to go with Talisim. Kittel. Now they don't let us to go with Talisim. We have the mitzvah of the Shechnoi Sidishu. Ki im el hamokom asher yivchar Hashem Elokeichem mikol shivteichem lo shum eshel lo sham l'shechnoi Sidishu v'alsa shama, says the Ramban. V'tam l'shechnoi Sidishu shetelchu lo me'eretz merachim v'tishalu on derech beis Hashem v'toimeru ishal reiu l'chu v'nale el har Hashem el beis Elokei Yaakov keloshin sin yishalu derech hine pneim. And there's also, of course, the mitzvah of Leisachonim, Rash Mesaretz, mitzvahs on all Eretz Yisrael, but of course on the holiest site in the world. Okay.
So if you have to give in 1 minute, somebody, why is it a mitzvah? Why should there be the shtokikus of going on to the Archeology? I know we said in the beginning, but like one...
I think this would be the main reason.
Right now. Binyan Beis HaMikdash biyadenu. Every one of us knows that there's a mitzvah to say dereis of asuli mikdash v'shachan d'keseichel. Mitzvah say to build a bayis Hashem, as Rambam writes, v'akol chayav l'vnoisei v'seyadam v'moinam anoshim v'noshim k'mikdash b'midbar. It's a mitzvah to build a Beis HaMikdash. And we all say, Animam v'emunah shalem v'viyas HaMashiach. We're all waiting for this Beis HaMikdash, for Mashiach to come, right? And most people say, Mashiach is going to build a Beis HaMikdash. But the Gemara seems to differ with that. Yeah. Rashi says that. Rashi also in 4 other places says that we're going to build it. And this one built by the Tzaddikim. I have a whole list on that. This is a very tiny Makayos of an hour and a half share by itself. Anyway, the Mishnah, the Yerushalmi says in Ma'aseh Sheni, Omer Rabbi Acha Zoyse Emer Shebeis HaMikdash Osun Libonos Koydem L'Malchus Beis David. That before Mashiach can come, the Beis HaMikdash has to be rebuilt. And this is Vilna Gaon takes this halacha l'maisa. Yeah, I understand. Well, again, I don't. It's not Gemara. It's Rashi's explanation of the Gemara. Tosfos also does say that we're not maching that shita avek. Let's be clear. We're not maching that shita avek. It definitely could happen. Probably won't happen because we have a mitzvah to build it. But it could happen.
When you take an airplane, what exactly is up there that it must should come down from there?
I don't know.
You need to say Shemayim, there's nothing.
That's true.
More than here.
That's true. So there are many Achronim who explain what it means. That it will fall from heaven. It means that the siyat d'shmai for us to build it. It'll be built like mamish, quick, chick shack. It says. Anyway, let's take a look at the Shlah. The Shlah writes, Al Kei Nira shekol ha'atzlachas ha'gedolis lo yeh tekev v'vias ha'geulo matzasi b'Yerushalmi shebeis hamikdash osam mibonim l'kodem l'malchus beis David Al Kei hutzachu loimer sheyivne beis hamikdash v'adayin beDavid loibo. This is actually based on the Gemara in Megillah, Daf Yud Zayin in Bavli, where it says, Acher Yeshu Hashem Elokeichem es David Malkom. Ubikshu Hashem Elokeichem es David Malkom. So Rashi there says, Acher Yeshuvu leBeis HaMikdash. First come to the Beis HaMikdash. And only after does Ben David come, and that's like the Seder of the Tefillos that we have. And we start off with Baruch Hashanim, Tikah B'Shofar, right? Hashiv Shavteinu, Amen, soon. Al Tzadikim, Lamashinim, and then we get to Binyan Yerushalayim, and only afterwards is that Tzemach David. You're about to miss the best part now. Okay, now we get the best part. Okay. We also have the famous Medrash. Thank you, Mordechai and David, for making this known to us, and Yossi Green. B'shal Shamelech HaMashiach Nigla Bo V'Omer Al Gag Beis HaMikdash V'Yom Hashmi Alem LiYisrael V'Omer Anovim Higi Zman Gulaschem V'Meinatem Aminim Ruba Yishay Zerech Alechem Shenemar Kumi Oike V'Yorech L'Chvar Hashem Alech Zarech Yalkut Shemoini. When Melech HaMashiach is revealed, what does he do? He stands on the Gag of the Beis HaMikdash. Where does Beis HaMikdash come from? It fell from Shemayim. So then why is he saying V'Meinatem Aminim? Everybody saw it fall from Shemayim. Are you talking someone's not going to be Mammon at the time?
I hear the word. He stands on the gag because on the floor it will be stone.
Yeah, it depends on what type of keeper he has. Anyway, he's standing on it, and what does he say? This is a dik ahead. It doesn't say akshonim higiyas mangalascha. It says anovim. Yeah. Humble ones. You're doing right. You thought they were right. They thought they were right. Must be that the Mizrachnikim had built the Beis HaMikdash with karbanos and everything going on. And the Charedim are still standing also to go to Har HaBayis. And Mashiach comes, he sends on the guy who finishes our place, I know him, he gives man golaschem, and if you still don't believe me, Ru boirish yisrech alechem, shenemer kum yiri kavod oirech u'kavod Hashem alech zorach. As the Minchas Chinuch writes, V'gam hayoim efshe shem yitu ha-malchias v'shus livnei Beis HaMikdash, and this is obviously at a time when the Malchias were in charge of Eretz Yisrael, mitzvah livnois. K'mavar b'medrash b'mei Rabbi Yehuda ben Chananya, the Nassim v'shus v'schil livnois, in the time of the Julian Dipastate, we mentioned them before. V'ayim sefer kabes tamarim, she'arbeinu chil ba'al atoisis rotza leilech lahakrav karbanos b'Yerushalayim, imkein hu adin livnois Beis HaMikdash. I should have put, I'm having charota, I didn't put the Sfas Emes, because I have Chassidish Sha'ilim. But the Sfas Emes writes that in Balsali Migdash, Gama Pirish Kibshutai, and he writes a whole mimer there. Maybe I'll read it after we finish this.
Which year?
In Taf Reish Mem. He writes over there that the pshat of the Kol Dor Shaloi Nimna Beis HaMikdash Kilu Necharav is Mamish Kibshutai, because if we truly had a shukah to build Beis HaMikdash, Hashem would arrange everything for us to build it. So if we haven't done so, it's on we don't have such a shukah. But it's even more important. We have the Rambam, which is really a Mishnah in Idios Makrivin HaKarbonos Kulon Afal Pi She'in Sham Bayis Banoi. Continues that we do all the things that we have a mitzvah to bring karbonos. Everybody, we have 1/3 of the Torah, one whole sefer out of the 5, and really more than one.
We're going to bring the korban.
We're going to bring the carbon and welcome Mizbeach. What?
We don't know the Mizbeach.
So we do know that there's Vadai 5 by 5 that Alashitas agree is the Magam Mizbeach. And if we actually dig, we'd find it much clearer. That there's a koil in Yerushalayim that has that in its Beiriche. Not Avitzian. It's not Avitzvaik's koil. It's run by Yeshua Landau and Rav Baruch Kahana. It's Avodas HaKayanim. They have a kvutza that learns how to do the carbon. It's a koil only for kayanim, and they have another one for levim. And they have in Mitzvah Yericha right outside there. They built a to scale mizbeach. If anybody ever is in Eretz Yisrael, I recommend that you go. It's very geschmack. What? It's built by the shir. So there they have the full kevesh, 30 amas, but the actual mizbeach is 5 amas by 5 amas, to fit exactly that spot that overlaps for all the shitas. Exactly where it is between Rashi and the Rambam. And to Moshe B'Tzibur, only Karban Tzibur until we have Paraduma. Karban Pesach would also be allowed.
You don't know exactly where the Ibn Osniya is, right?
We know exactly where the Evan Shasir is. That's what we did. That was the whole one. The Evan Shasir for sure we know.
No, where do you know? How do you know?
Oh, we're on the Evan Shasir was the place of the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Yeah. So there are those who say exactly they have. There's some archaeologists who say, but again, there's assumptions, yeah. But as long as we can put it in enough. There's still. Anyway, Tachlis. Most of the Chachamim and the Gedolei Adar, when asked the Shiloh about bringing karbanos, we mentioned the Chassam Sofer before, right? We also mentioned what? The Archeology, of course. And Kivega, the Chassam Sofer, right? Chazon Ish writes as well, if they give us a shus to bring Karban Pesach, we have to bring it. And Rabbi Yashiv, someone asked about Rabbi Yashiv before, Rabbi Yashiv writes, Ki be'emes al pi halacha, efsher limtzai tshuva u'pisar l'chol she'ela b'inyan akrobas Karban Pesach, heim b'negei l'bir mokum ha'meduyik shalom mizbeach, v'hem b'metzias kayani chazaka muvakim, b'chonas big dekuna l'fi kol ha'shitas, v'oid ki yoytze b'dvar melu, v'af yidei tikkun imoim l'inyan nichbar hazeh. So,
which tribe is he going to use?
Obviously Ridzin. So let's take a look.
No, obviously, the joke.
Here we have. Let's take a look now at what has transpired. This is the Belzer Mishpacha, the Elboims. You have different pictures of people going on. Ben Shapiro, obviously. Avelia Weber in that previous picture. What?
Which one?
He definitely went to the mikvah. I literally saw him go to the mikvah. Okay, I'm the Zaydis. And here we have Rabbi Yosef Elboim and Torah on the Har. Different people giving drashas. And that's Rabbi Yavitz. Here we have, this is the first day we were allowed to daven mincha. So when I first started going to Har HaBayis, there was, we used to not even be allowed to mumble. We have to like walk, like the walker would walk with me, like literally standing right next to me, along with the Israeli police. If you even mumbled or said something or stood still, like with your eyes closed, they would start screaming Allahu Akbar at you, and the priest would grab you and take you off. No comment if I've seen the inside of the kishla. So the kishla is the police station by the beginning of the entrance to the old city. Anyway. Now I'm a Tzala member, so now I definitely go there to deal with the prisoners. But I've said that, for that reason, I've definitely seen it. And over time, there was around 7.5 years ago, we started Yeshivas Har HaBayis. Yeshivas Har HaBayis was a group led by Rabbi Yehuda Levi. We started a kvutza of Avreichim. We would sit at the entrance to the Har. We learned Kodshim. And as we would go, every time there was an Aliyah, we'd go around the Har. And it was the kviyas paid off. As we know from the Carbon Talmud, it's called Talmud, but it's not Talmud. So the Ramban writes, it's the kviyas that makes that brings the Tmidus. Every time that the Har was open, we had a group that was there, and as slowly but surely we were able to make things move forward. This is the first day that we were able to daven mincha on the Har, and we were able to stand here for 5 minutes. 5 minutes, b'sheket. We all davened. We used to have to daven. When we started davening, we finally got to that point where we were able to talk. I would say, Ashrei Yeshiv V'Sechel, we would do it like that. And it eventually grew to, we would have people would be davening while they said Shema Nesrei. Not L'chatchila, while walking. But now we got to a point where we were able to do this. And if you see here, remember, these steps here are the steps right over the place where the 15 Shir Mala steps once stood. Right here.
How many feet?
So which direction is this?
You're standing on east facing west.
How many feet?
The Beis HaMikdash stood a third higher than the sphere. So look up till here. You're looking, and you can appreciate why it said why Rambam writes L'yaka Roshi Keneged Shar Mizrach.
How many feet away?
Oh, we're quite a few feet away. The Ezras Nashim would start around this tree, rising upwards. And this is from other days. Davening, Nefilas Hapayim, we got away. Clearly, what's on his phone is much more important, and therefore we were able to get away with it. Davenings continued, and we were able to grow it. Now we have full Berachas Kohanim every morning in our Shachar Minyan. Unfortunately, without Talis Tefillin, but at least we're able to do it. As we know, davening on Har HaBayis. What? No. There's no tefillin, no talis tefillin. Unfortunately, if more people would come to the Har, we'd be able to do more things. What? Yeah. And
You're doing shachris every day?
every day, 7 o'clock and 9:30. Without talis tefillin.
Why did he come here?
What?
Why did he come here? Missing out.
I'm talking missing.
No, that's
My niece is getting married tomorrow.
That's much more important.
You know, if have to sometimes go away to feel it. Maybe I came to bring you guys up with me. And this is what a daily minyan for Mincha looks like today. Full. People, all times. We have group. That woman is a police officer. That woman is a police officer.
Why don't you stand on the Ma'ariv side? Why don't you stand on the Ma'ariv side?
Why don't we stand on the Ma'ariv side? Because it's facing the entrance to the Beis HaMikdash.
But he said that the Lordam was usually because
Right, but you want to stand. You always want to face towards the front and towards the front. Imagine during COVID, right? You weren't able to go to your shul. Obviously, you were able to go to your shul. We know who we're talking to. But when you weren't able to go to your shul, right? What do? You're going to stand. You're going to crawl through the shrubbery to get to the back, so you stand as close to the Aron Kodesh. No, you face the front.
Mishnah Talmud said that they found in delicious hagos is not facing the
Yes, that was where the Kayan davened. Most people that would enter into Har HaBayis would not go into the Beis HaMikdash at all. Where would they daven? By the east, where we daven today.
No,
yes.
in the south.
They were not davening in the south. They were davening by the east.
They daven Lishchai Gozes.
Gozis was only for the Kayhanim. You can't get into Lishchai Gozis if you're Tamei. But people would go daven on the Har. Basically, the current Kaislan Maravi Plaza is what they would do on the east by the entrance over here. This is sometimes when we have a large enough group, we have 2 minyanim, so 1 minyan will be by this path here where we saw, another move will be moved over here, and here we have Rabbi Sol Ariel Shlita, who was there. We have Hasidim, Snagdim, all walks. This is Rav Friedman over here, Benjamin Friedman. No, they're not all wearing tchilas. I know people say they wear tchilas. It's misogol, you'll go on Har HaBayis, but somehow some people aren't wearing zaycha. I don't know. Another picture of Ben Shapiro, Pinchas Abramowitz, if anybody knows him. And this is even during the rain. And this is one of the later Haredi pictures we take. There's a famous singer in this picture, including and a grandson of Rabbi Yehuda Levi. I'm not saying who they are. Here are videos of campaigns for the yeshiva. Of Elio Weber, the Rosh Yeshiva.
כמו שראינו פה שבימים שהר הבית ציבור ליהודים, אז הדגלי פלסטין תלויים על כיפת הסלע.
כנגד זה מגיע קביעות אחרת.
ישיבת הר הבית זוכה...
So Elisha Wolfson, Mechaber of High On The Har.
אדיר. אט זוכים ליצור בשטח מצב חדש. מצב שלא היה 2000 שנה. תפילה יהודים בהר הבית. את המהפך הגדול הזה אנחנו חייבים להמשיך ולהעצים. בהר הבית אין ואקום. זה או שיש שם את אויבי ישראל שמחרפים ומגדפים וקוראים לרצח יהודי. כשאנחנו שם, כשישיבת הר הבית שם, יש תורה, יש קדושה, יש תפילה.
בימים האלו בואו כולכם ותהיו שותפים,
תהיו חלק מהדבר הקדוש הזה, הנשגב הזה, להשיב את השכינה לציון. ברוך השם שיש לנו קדושת הר הבית.
And the reason why I'm showing these videos, not to raise money, but to showcase what the yeshiva is doing and the massive change the kvias of the yeshiva is doing. And here's another campaign video, because you usually only get to see the good shots during the campaign videos. You can move on.
שותפים איתנו בדרישות של המקום הקדוש הזה. אנחנו יודעים שלא כל אחד יכול לבוא כל יום, על אף הרצון הגדול, כל אחד עסוק בענייניו כמובן. אז אנחנו כאן, שליחים שלכם, שליחים של עם ישראל. לבוא יום לדרוש למקום הקדוש הזה, ללמוד, להתפלל בשבילכם.
There's a Brisi Yitzchak. Brand.
שותפים עמנו, כמו זרם מחצית שקל, נלמד ישיבת הר הבית, כל שציון. כך אנחנו שליחים שלכם, שותפים עמנו, דרישת ציון, כך נזכה בעזרת השם, עניין המקדש, עניין ירושלים, תראו עינינו ונשמח.
Okay.
It goes every day.
What?
The mini goes every day.
The meeting goes every day.
At what time?
So, as I mentioned, 7 o'clock, Shachar, so the Daf Yomi Shir from Rav Weber.
We're going on the bridge.
What?
When can I see them go on the bridge?
7 o'clock. Yeah.
anyone ever encountered any violence during the...
I've been there now, B'li Ayin Hara, almost in 8 years, and have never encountered any sort of violence, riots. There was one time we were on the Har in Ramadan where we were walking removed, and I saw them shoot a firework at the police. They always attack the police. The Reitzeach,
Nobody was ever in danger.
Yamach Shemay B'Zichroi, who murdered L.E.K. A year and a half ago, they saw him on the video. He was very friendly with the mufti of the Har. They saw him on video on the Har with his gun after the fact, right next to our group. Did nothing. Went out and attacked someone coming from the Kaisel.
On Har Havai, when you came out there.
Thank you. Okay, so I have to make my pitch just because I'm doing it. Groups that we have here. Yeshiva Har Bayis, High On The Har is a gateway for those that are not as initiated as for yeshiva. It's an English resource for the yeshiva. The yeshiva is doing tremendous work, going on a regular basis, making sure and changing the kviyos of what's going on. But like every yeshiva in Koil, needs help. Can't do it, right? So this is not the purpose of the share, but it's my job as a member of the Hanola of the yeshiva to always do my pitch and ask. But what you can do personally, more than any money you can give us, is to come. Obviously, ask your shaylas, figure out if it's mutter for you to come or not. But the more Am Yisrael comes to Har Bayis, and I've heard this from people in the government, from people in the police, from people from all over. if the numbers that would be, even chatzi of the numbers that are at the Kais on a daily basis would be on Har HaBayis, there would be massive change. If we, instead of having the daily 100 people that we have on a regular basis, we'd have 1,000.
Maybe the Arabs would be forced to respond.
When the Arabs, I don't think so. Okay. So in order for you to go to Har HaBayis, you have to. Okay.
The worst
So,
thing is
okay. Right.
Okay.
Chevra, guys, I'm happy. Let me. Okay. Right. All right, I'm just shutting down. Look, you're not raising a bad point. You are definitely not raising a bad point. There are, Rega. Yes, I'm saying your question is a valid question. How we would deal with it. The question about the Arabs responding is also a valid question. Yeah. We saw it from the Chachamim were matter for the Amaratzim to eat the kachikalim even outside the Chaimis. But again, we need big people for that. I'm not that big. I'm not that. Okay. Lemaisa, we have Big Day Kuna, we have it sits, it's ready. We have everything for that. Regarding Paraduma, I got to finish my pitch and then we'll shut the camera and then we'll do it. No. So, the more, if people say, okay, when the base of English is built, I'll come to that. No, I'll be derech hateva. The way we see it is that the only way Har HaBayis is treated as a Jewish holy site is when Jews come there and treat it as such. And we need more, especially from the Haredi Tzibur, to come to showcase to the people who actually do know how to treat it with respect, who are in fact knowledgeable in how to prepare themselves and go to a mikvah, and to when they're on there to be noyeg with the respect that it deserves, and to daven there and to tap into that immense tefillah, the power of tefillah that's there. Right? People spend hundreds of dollars and thousands of dollars running to all sorts of places. So, Karastir right now, the Yartzai, right? People they're running, they're trying to they want to tap into just a little bit so that tefillahs are answered in some other way, some higher power to elevate their tefillah. And where HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself guarantees that tefillahs is answered on the Har. So if you have that opportunity to take that, to experience that, to come that, it's a game changer, it will change your life. More than anything, come yourself. Obviously, come yourself. Come as it grows, as people learn more and more about the halachas, more and more people will be knowledgeable. Our experience has shown that the more people that go up to halacha, it inspires more people to go to halacha. It stops more people from going shalei halacha, as I've seen b'poil in my own experience over the last 7 years. And nothing more. We can raise as many dollars as possible, but that's not going to make the real change in the place. The real change will come when Am Yisrael decides that this is an important place for them to come to, a place for them to tap into. And just as we were all zeicha to learn and to have the chukka of trying to get closer to this beautiful naisei of Binyan Beis HaMikdash, and may we all be zeicha to see the Beis HaMikdash itself. It's sefarta b'meher b'yameinu amen.